Ding ding, my phone vibrated. A message with an attached audio file. I hesitated for a few seconds, then, curious, tapped to open. My love, I can't stand that old hag for one more day. Just one fall down the stairs and it's done. Quick, neat, clean. Quick, neat. I was petrified. The voice so familiar it made my blood stop flowing. But I didn't dare believe. Was that really Melissa Carter's voice, my daughter, or just someone deliberately trying to imitate her? Doubt poured down like a storm, making my entire world collapse. They were discussing how to get rid of the troublesome old hag, each word like a blade driving into my heart. I could no longer distinguish truth from lie. Only one question spun in my head. If that truly was my child, then what meaning did this lifetime of sacrifice have? Before uncovering the truth, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and leave your thoughts in the comments, because what is about to unfold will surely shock you. For you to understand why that recording tore me apart so deeply, you must know how my journey of motherhood began. My name is Evelyn Carter. I am 64 years old, raised in a poor family. My mother, a frail craftswoman, worked 16 hours a day to feed me and my 4 younger siblings. Her hands were calloused, her back bent, yet she always taught me, Evelyn, the most precious thing in life is kindness, for family, until the very last drop of blood. At 19, I became pregnant with Melissa. Her father vanished the moment he heard the news, leaving me standing in the rain with a belly not yet rounded. That night, it was my mother who pulled me up, wiped my tears, and whispered, "This child will have everything we never had. You and I will raise her into someone worthy." And I made that promise. Melissa was born under the flickering lights of the hospital, without a father at her side. When the nurse placed her into my arms, I looked into those wide, round eyes and knew I had found my reason to go on living. From the age of 20, I worked every job imaginable, scrubbing toilets, washing laundry, cleaning dishes, and endless other tasks. Chemicals cracked my hands, my back ached, but I never stopped. Every dollar I earned, I saved for Melissa. On her first day of school, we had to walk because we couldn't afford bus fare. I wore a torn dress and worn-out slippers, but my daughter, in her ironed uniform and polished shoes, looked radiant. When the gatekeeper cast me a scornful glance, she turned to kiss my cheek and said, "Mom, you're the best in the world." I swallowed all humiliation, leaving only pride. Time passed in that relentless cycle, waking at 5 a.m. to cook, walking her to school, cleaning 4 houses a day, then still sitting at night to help her with homework. Once, I fainted in a stranger's house from exhaustion, but when I awoke, I kept cleaning because all I could think of was the image of Melissa growing up, escaping the hardships that chained me. When Melissa turned 14, I had managed to save a little to repair our leaking roof, but instead, I used it to throw her a birthday party, so she could feel whole like other children. That night, in her dazzling pink dress, she leaned close and whispered, "Mom, one day I'll repay you 1,000 times over." We sealed that promise with a handprint in an old notebook. I kept it my entire life like a blood pact. Then came college. Tuition was $18,000 a year. I sold everything, the old ring, the necklace my mother had told me to keep as a memento. When I signed the sale papers, tears fell, but I still held Melissa's hand and said, "You will study. You will never have to kneel on a floor and scrub like I did." On her graduation day, dressed in cap and gown, the whole hall applauded. She embraced me and said, "Mom, this is yours too. From today, you won't suffer anymore." I believed. I believed with all my heart. I believed that all my sacrifices, my blood and tears, had finally been rewarded. But I did not know that very promise would one day be turned by my own daughter into a blade that pierced straight through my heart. 2 years after graduation, Melissa met Daniel Miller at her new company. At first, I was overjoyed. I saw my daughter radiant, happy, and I believed she had finally found a steady shoulder to lean on. Daniel seemed stable then, an engineer at a factory, polite, attentive to Melissa. When he proposed, I burst into tears. I thought my daughter was about to have the home I never had. But to make that wedding happen, I drained myself dry and borrowed from everyone I could. Melissa wanted a glamorous ceremony like the ones in magazines, a banquet hall costing $9,000, a $1,500 gown, flowers and live music that added another $1,000. In total, more than $12,000, just to see her walk in that white dress. I told myself, it's fine, as long as she's happy. The early years of their marriage seemed beautiful. Every Sunday, Melissa and Daniel came for dinner. Melissa slipped a little money into my hand and said, "Mom, now it's my turn to take care of you." And I believed, once again, that all my sacrifices had been worth it. But 2 years ago, when Daniel lost his job, cracks began to show. They borrowed from me again and again. First a few $100s, then $3,000 for a car deposit, then $4,500 to pay off credit card debt. I couldn't bring myself to say no, and from then on, strange signs began to appear. At first, it was small things. They visited less often. Each time I called, Melissa was busy. "Mom, I'm in a meeting." "Mom, I'm at the supermarket." "Mom, it's late, I'm having dinner." The promise of, "I'll call you tomorrow," never came. Then came the double-edged comments. "Mom, Daniel says you forget things a lot. Are you okay living alone?" I forced a smile, but inside, I felt hurt. One time, I brought Daniel's favorite apple pie to their house. I stood in the rain for nearly 20 minutes, hearing laughter inside, but no one opened the door. When Melissa finally appeared, her smile was strained. "Oh, Mom, what a surprise." Inside, I caught a glimpse of Samantha Lopez, her cousin, the notary hugging a stack of documents. As soon as she saw me, she shoved the papers into her bag, her fingers still stained with purple ink. "I'm just helping Melissa with Daniel's insurance," she deflected. But I had already seen my own name printed on one of those sheets. After that, Melissa began forgetting our meetings one after another. 4 times I was left standing outside her door. The 5th time, I waited 2 hours at a cafe, the pie I baked melting into mush, while around me, families laughed together. I had become the fool of my own motherhood. Soon after, they moved into my house, using the excuse that I was getting old and needed someone to care for me. But I sensed something strange, something I couldn't yet define. Gradually, Daniel's true nature surfaced. He threw the remote onto the floor with a smirk. Easier to just replace it. Melissa rummaged through my closet, pulling out my old savings book. "Mom, this is outdated. Let me keep it safe for you." I began overhearing whispers on the porch. 2 weeks, and it's done. Daniel's voice. When I stepped in, they quickly changed the subject. Subtle forms of control crept in. They changed the Wi-Fi password. When I asked, Melissa snapped, "Mom, you type slower than a kid. Forget it." One day, she slipped a bottle of supplements into my purse and casually remarked, "Mom, you forgot your memory pills again." Then the strangers started knocking. A so-called health worker came to check my blood pressure, asking 3 ridiculous questions. "What city are you in? What day is it today? Do you remember your house number?" I answered clearly, but he still wrote, "Signs of mild dementia." Melissa stood beside him, nodding as if confirming. From then on, the house was no longer a home. It became a trap. Each time I entered a room, their conversations would stop. Everything was tampered with, the TV, the stove, even my closet. I was no longer the owner of my own house, but a guest being slowly erased from my own life. That afternoon, I was washing dishes when my phone buzzed with a message and an attached audio file. Naively, I thought Melissa was reminding me she'd be home late or asking me to cook her favorite dish. I had no idea that the moment I pressed play, my entire world would collapse. Melissa's voice rang out, cold and sharp. "My love, I can't stand that old woman another day. She really is a nuisance, always lurking around, bothering us, never letting us live in peace. Daniel's snort followed, dripping with contempt. Yeah, just get rid of her already. Saves us money. One fall down the stairs and it's done. Quick, neat, clean. I froze. The child I raised with my calloused hands and sleepless nights was now speaking of me like I was disposable trash. Melissa continued, her tone steady, as if calculating grocery expenses. I already checked the places. $600 a month, cramming 4 people in one room. No refunds. Just take her for that health checkup next Wednesday morning and it's done. I gripped the spoon in my hand, trembling, but the final blow was still to come. Her house is worth nearly $600,000. Selling it would cover the debts, buy a car, and leave enough for vacations. Plus, there's the life insurance once we sign the papers. All we have to do is wait. Samantha said code M18 is the shortcut. Mom will never know. Memories crashed back. Samantha, with her stack of papers stained purple, that doctor asking 3 idiotic questions, the whispers of 3 weeks left. None of it was coincidence. It was a plan. I collapsed onto the kitchen floor, the photo frame of Melissa's graduation slipping and clattering softly beside me. The smile that once filled me with pride now split apart like my own heart. But amid the agony, a fire ignited inside me. I opened the recording app, switched to save mode. Each heartbeat felt like a stamp sealing the truth. Melissa's voice went on calmly. Wednesday, 8 a.m. Take her, Daniel. You handle burning the old papers at home. Tonight we'll book a steakhouse table to celebrate. I slumped against the kitchen cabinet, listening to the word celebrate, with my eyes blazing. In my mind, the pieces aligned into one picture. I was no longer just the victim. I had to become the one in control. I saved the file, uploaded it to the cloud, titled it Wednesday, 8 a.m. Evidence. My hands were unnervingly steady. Before turning off the phone, I typed a short reply. Mom heard it all, my love. Then I set the phone on the table and brewed myself a cup of herbal tea. That night, I drafted a will, then tore it to shreds. Because I understood. I was not born to die inside my own story. I would live and reclaim every shred of dignity they thought I had lost. The next morning, I opened my eyes at exactly 6, as if my body already knew. This would be the most important day of my life. I was no longer the naive Evelyn, the mother who let her own daughter lead her by the nose. Today, I would show them they had gravely underestimated the woman who had given them life and raised them. The first step was not to confront them directly, but to secure my ground. I quietly hired someone to install hidden cameras in the living room and bedroom. If they dared to rummage again, I would have evidence. The house that once had been my weakness was now becoming my fortress. I dressed in a black suit, applied lipstick, combed my hair neatly, and put on the earrings my mother had left me. Before leaving, I left a note on the table. Some private errands. Back this afternoon. Mom. No explanations. They had spent months deciding everything for me without asking. Now it was my turn. I arrived at the bank the moment the doors opened. Linda Cooper, the branch manager who had known me for 15 years, looked up with a smile. Good morning, Mrs. Carter. Good morning, Linda. I want to cancel all previous authorizations, change every beneficiary on my insurance policies, and print all transactions from the last 5 months. When Linda flipped through the file, her brow furrowed. Melissa already submitted an authorization with your signature. One glance was enough. Forged. The handwriting was crooked, nothing like mine. I placed my ID on the desk. Compare. This is fake. Linda's face turned pale. She immediately called staff and filed a fraud report. Within an hour, I had opened a new account, moved all $7,650 into it, changed every password, and most importantly, transferred my insurance beneficiary to the New Horizons Foundation for Abandoned Seniors. My blood and tears, Melissa would never touch them. The next stop, the notary's office, where Samantha Lopez, Melissa's cousin, worked. I walked in with my recorder ready. "Good morning, Samantha," I said lightly. "I heard you've been handling documents with my name on them. I'd like to see them." Samantha's face drained of color, her hands trembling. I lowered my voice. "Samantha, I know everything. The forged signature, the fake medical reports, code M18, and I have the recording." I played a few seconds of Melissa and Daniel's voices. Samantha collapsed into her chair, sobbing. "Aunt Evelyn." I didn't want to, but Melissa insisted. "Enough. You have two options. One, hand me all the fake documents, write a confession, sign, and leave a fingerprint. Two, I hand this evidence to your superior right now." Crying, she complied. Soon, I held her written confession, signature, fingerprint, and the forged papers in my hands. The final stop, Attorney Robert Hayes' office. I spread the evidence across his desk, the audio, the fake documents, Samantha's confession. He frowned deeply. "Mrs. Carter, this is serious fraud. We can pursue both civil and criminal charges. What do you want?" I looked him straight in the eye, my voice firm. "I want justice. I want my daughter to know. Betrayal has a price. For 64 years I've been too gentle. That ends now. I will defend myself." Hayes nodded, eyes sharp. "We'll file with the police immediately. I guarantee this case will make waves." Late that afternoon, I returned home and cooked dinner as usual. Melissa looked up from the TV, forcing a smile. "Mom, where were you all day?" I sat down, gazed straight into her eyes, and smiled mysteriously. "Very well, my dear, very well. And tomorrow, the truth will arrive right on time." For the first time in months, I slept peacefully, because I knew the wheel of justice had begun to turn, and nothing could stop it now. At 9 o'clock the next morning, the doorbell rang. I walked faster than Melissa and Daniel, reaching it first. When the door opened, there stood Attorney Robert Hayes, 2 uniformed police officers, and a notary carrying a thick briefcase. "Good morning, Mrs. Carter," Mr. Hayes said. "We are here to execute the orders you signed yesterday." In the living room, Melissa and Daniel sprang up from the sofa, eyes wide, faces drained of color. "Mom, what is this? Who are they?" Melissa stammered. I stared at them, my voice steel hard. "Sit down. It's time for the truth to be exposed." Attorney Hayes placed the files on the table, opening each page carefully. I had already set up hidden cameras in the room to record every second. "Mrs. Melissa Carter, Mr. Daniel Miller," he declared slowly, "we have undeniable evidence of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to seize the property of Mrs. Evelyn Carter." Melissa trembled, her face ashen. Daniel gripped the armrest, his teeth clenched. "We haven't done anything wrong." I picked up my phone and pressed play. Melissa's voice rang out, loud and unmistakable. "My love, I can't stand that old woman another day. She's such a nuisance." Daniel's sneer followed. One slipped down the stairs, quick, neat, clean. The room froze. Through the half-open window, neighbors stopped in their tracks, hearing every word, their expressions stunned. "Stop it!" Melissa screamed, lunging for my phone. But clink! A police officer stepped forward, raising a hand, the glint of handcuffs flashing in the sunlight as a silent warning. I stayed calm. "Sit down. This is only the beginning." Mr. Hayes drew out another file. "This is the written confession of Samantha Lopez, district notary and cousin of Melissa. It records dates, times, and the bribe she received to forge signatures." Melissa's face turned ghostly pale. Samantha lied to save herself. I played another recording. Samantha's sobbing voice filled the room. "Melissa forced me to forge the signature. She promised me $5,000 once she got the house." Daniel buried his head in his hands, muttering, "This is a nightmare." I cut him off. "No, this is justice. A nightmare is when your own daughter and son-in-law plot to dump you in a care home like discarded furniture." Mr. Hayes continued, We also have the falsified medical reports. But yesterday, Mrs. Carter underwent re-examination at Mount Sinai Hospital, New York. Dr. Alan Chen, geriatric specialist, confirmed she is fully competent. On a tablet screen, the doctor's voice echoed. Mrs. Carter shows no signs of dementia. In fact, her cognitive scores are above average. Melissa broke down in tears. "Mom, we just wanted you to have professional care. We were drowning in debt." I met her eyes, my words striking like hammers. Debt doesn't give you the right to become thieves. From a drawer, I pulled out an old photo. 3 generations, my mother, myself, and little Melissa. I held it up. "Look at this. Who has disappeared from your heart?" Melissa sobbed, collapsing. Daniel stammered. The money was for bills. Mr. Hayes threw bank statements onto the table. $600, $2,000, $200, $3,000, $400, all withdrawn from ATMs near the shopping center. A total of $6,200. Meanwhile, utility bills were still paid by Mrs. Carter. Daniel's mouth snapped shut. Finally, Mr. Hayes produced a receipt from Mount Sinai Hospital. A $2,200 deposit, scheduling to take Mrs. Carter for a so-called medical check at 8 a.m. Wednesday. I stepped closer to Melissa, my voice cutting into her soul. "The deepest pain isn't that you wanted to steal my house. The deepest pain is that when I held you and said, 'I love you,' you were calculating how much my death was worth." Melissa wailed. Daniel's eyes were bloodshot, lips bitten until they bled. A police officer stepped forward. "Mrs. Carter, do you want us to proceed with the arrest now?" I looked at my daughter one last time. Then I remembered her laughter in that recording. I lifted my chin, resolute. "Yes, do it." The metallic click of handcuffs echoed, locking Melissa and Daniel's wrists. Melissa cried out, "Mom, I'm all you have. You can't do this to me." Her words cut bitterly through my mind, because it was she who had declared I had no value beyond my assets. As Daniel was led past me, his eyes burned with fury, his whisper venomous. "This isn't over, old lady. You'll pay." The officers immediately added a restraining order, recording his threat in the report. I turned toward the hidden camera, still recording, and allowed myself a faint smile. From this day forward, I am the plaintiff, no longer the shadow. I once thought that when Melissa and Daniel were led away in handcuffs, the nightmare had ended. But I was wrong. Barely 3 days later, a new battle began, not fought with law, but with mud, shadows, and lies spread at lightning speed, though I had no idea who was fueling it. When I opened the social network X, I saw my name being torn apart in local community groups. An anonymous account posted, "My mother is severely senile, making up stories that her children stole her money. If you see her wandering the streets, please call me immediately." Attached were photos of me, secretly taken and cruelly edited. My skin pale, my eyes vacant, placed against desolate backdrops to make me look insane. Comments poured in like a pack of starving wolves. "Poor lady, clearly losing her mind. She's cruel, accusing her own kids. She should be in a home already." Each line cut into me, bitter and cold. At 2 a.m, my phone rang. My hands shook as I answered. No words, only heavy breathing, like a predator lurking. Then the call ended. My heart pounded like war drums. I couldn't sleep that night. The next day, 2 so-called social workers knocked at my door, flashing vague ID cards. They claimed they wanted to check my condition, but I noticed their phones recording, panning over the cluttered kitchen, the medicine cabinet, framing scenes to build a false narrative of an old woman unable to care for herself. But I was prepared. A recorder by the door captured their words clearly. "Just act a little frail, ma'am, and the paperwork will be easier to approve." I refused. They left quickly, muttering. I smiled grimly. I had more evidence. Mrs. Dorothy Mitchell, my neighbor of 30 years, saw the smear posts and went live on X. I've lived next to Evelyn all my life. She's sharp, hardworking, not senile at all. Those accusations are garbage." Her voice rang out, and for the first time amid the wolves, I felt an ally at my side. But that night, an unmarked envelope appeared at my door. When I opened it, a cloud of white powder burst out. I coughed violently, eyes stinging. Police later confirmed it was just salt mixed with detergent, a cheap scare tactic, but enough to prove someone was trying to terrorize me. The letters kept coming, each one sharper than the last. "You're a failed mother. Your daughter would rather see you dead than live with you. You've been nothing but a servant your whole life. Now you deserve to be thrown away like trash." I refused to be shaken, because the truth was still the truth. Then came one letter that made me sink to the kitchen floor, the very spot where I had once listened to the fateful recording. It wasn't from Melissa. It was from my younger sister, enclosing a note our late mother had written before she passed. "Evelyn, you deserve respect. Don't let anyone, not even blood, trample on your dignity." The ticking clock on the wall struck me like a hammer. Tears fell, but I wiped them away quickly. The very next day, Attorney Hayes called a press conference. He presented the audio recording, Samantha's written confession, and even the smear posts on social media. His voice was firm. "This is not only a case of property fraud. This is a deliberate campaign to destroy the reputation of an elderly woman." Hearing those words, a weight lifted from my chest. I whispered, loud enough for the darkness to hear, "I am not prey for the wolves in the shadows." And for the first time, I knew. This war was far from over, but I no longer felt fear. By evening, I picked up the phone and called Attorney Robert Hayes. "Attorney, I want you to pursue every single charge. I will not withdraw. I want this case to go all the way." His voice was steady, resolute. "Very well, Mrs. Carter. But I must tell you, Melissa and Daniel are already trying to negotiate a settlement outside of court. They're terrified that a public trial will destroy what's left of their reputation." I frowned. "What kind of settlement?" "They're offering to return all the money, compensate you for damages, and promise never to contact you again if you agree to drop the criminal charges." I stayed silent for a long time. Money could be returned, but justice? Could I let that go? Finally, I spoke. "Fine, but this time they will pay publicly, and there will be no way to erase the record." I laid down my conditions. A public apology. Melissa and Daniel would live stream their admission on the very X account they had used to smear me, and leave it up for at least 48 hours. A written confession. They must handwrite a statement affirming I was fully competent that all their previous accusations were lies. This confession would be published in the local newspaper. Destruction of forged documents. Every fake paper, including the falsified medical reports, must be surrendered and destroyed under the supervision of a notary. Guaranteed compensation. $6,200 they had stolen, plus $10,000 in damages, transferred through the bank with guarantees, no tricks, no delays. A penalty clause. If they harassed or slandered me again, all criminal charges would immediately be reopened. Mandatory community service. Both of them must participate in the Ethics of Elder Care program to learn the price of betrayal. Hayes listened, and a cold smile touched his lips. Brilliant. This is not just law, this is living justice. 2 weeks later, the agreement was signed in court. I received back every dollar plus damages. But more importantly, the truth was laid bare. On live stream, before hundreds in our community, Melissa and Daniel bowed their heads. We, Melissa Carter and Daniel Miller, admit that we fabricated lies about Mrs. Evelyn Carter's mental state. We conspired to seize her property using forged documents. Mrs. Carter is fully competent. We apologize publicly and accept all consequences. The confession spread everywhere. The local paper ran the headline, "Plot to Steal Mother's Home Exposed by a Mistaken Audio Message." As I stepped out of the courthouse, sunlight poured onto the pavement. People no longer looked at me as a weak old woman, but as a woman who had walked through fire and emerged with her head held high. I said only one thing: I choose justice, not vengeance. And I knew from that moment on, I had reclaimed not only my honor or my property, but the right to live the rest of my life in dignity. Even with the settlement signed, I knew things were not completely over. But I wasn't afraid anymore, because I was no longer the naive Evelyn who let fate push her around. I was now a 64-year-old woman who understood. Justice does not lie in suffering silently, but in rising, using wisdom and the law to defend dignity. I invited attorney Robert Hayes to my home. Sitting across from him, I read aloud my new will. All of my assets, including the house and every cent of my savings, will be donated to the New Horizons Foundation for abandoned seniors. And an additional no contest clause: if Melissa or anyone else dares challenge it, they will forfeit everything. Not a single penny will they receive. Hayes looked at me, stunned. Mrs. Carter, that's nearly $600,000. Are you certain? I nodded firmly. Absolutely. I want this money to save those truly in need, not to feed those who see their parents as an investment. I decided to sell the house, the very battlefield of betrayal, through a public auction. Local TV stations covered it. Mother targeted by daughter's plot sells home to fund elderly aid. From the proceeds, I set aside $105,000, along with the compensation to buy a small apartment in a community for active seniors. There I had a garden, friends, and sunlight pouring through every window. The remaining funds were more than enough to live comfortably for the rest of my days, with a peace I had not known in decades. During the investigation, we uncovered that Melissa and Daniel had committed years of tax fraud. I submitted all evidence of their extravagant spending to the IRS, from a $2,100 designer bag to their luxury Las Vegas vacation. The results were swift. Daniel was caught lying about side jobs. Melissa had hidden income from her online store. Together, they owed more than $26,000 in back taxes, doubled with penalties and interest into $52,000. Cornered, they had to sell their car, pawn jewelry, and borrow to avoid prison. Samantha Lopez, the cousin who notarized forged documents, wasn't spared either. From her testimony, Hayes and I submitted the names of 5 other officials who had colluded in similar schemes. The outcome: 5 dismissals and over a dozen cases of elder property theft exposed. Samantha lost her job and was forced to apologize publicly at City Hall. I betrayed the trust of the elderly. I am deeply sorry. The hall fell into heavy silence. Melissa worked in a company that demanded impeccable personal integrity. After the scandal, she was demoted to warehouse duties. Daniel lost his job completely. His boss asked him point blank, "If you can steal from your mother-in-law, how can this company ever trust you?" Friends turned their backs. Their group chats quietly removed them. At the supermarket, the pharmacy, people whispered as they passed, "There goes the daughter who tried to steal her mother's house." Meanwhile, I began receiving letters from other seniors. "Your story gave us the courage to stand up." For the first time, I realized what I had done was not only for myself, but for the entire community. That evening, standing on the balcony of my new apartment, I watched sunlight fall over the green gardens. I whispered, "The law is a scalpel. I only cut where the rot lies." And I knew this legal revenge was the most beautiful justice life had ever given me. Throughout this journey, I never once chose the path of hatred. I didn't invent stories. I didn't fabricate evidence. I didn't use violence. I simply let consequences return naturally to the ones who betrayed me. And the law itself became the sword that spoke for me. 6 months later, I ran into Melissa at the shopping mall. She was gaunt, hollow-eyed, stripped of all the arrogance she once carried. When she saw me, she rushed over, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Mom, please, forgive me. We lost everything. Daniel is unemployed. I'm working a low-paying job. Isn't that punishment enough?" I looked straight into her eyes, not with hatred, not with softness either. Melissa, I am not the one punishing you. Your actions have punished you. Forgiveness is for me. Forgetting is for the wind. From a distance, Daniel stood with his arms crossed, eyes burning with resentment. I simply turned away, walking past without a glance. This time, I was the one leaving first. Back in my new apartment, where sunlight poured through white curtains, I discovered another kind of family, the family I chose. There was Linda Cooper, my 70-year-old friend who loved dancing. There was Mr. Frank Harrison, a 72-year-old neighbor devoted to gardening. There was the group of seniors who joined me on weekend picnics. No one imposed, no one schemed. We simply shared joy. The first landscape painting I ever finished, a mountain ridge lined with emerald trees, was bought by a 76-year-old widower. He told me, "Your painting holds the peace I've been searching for." From there, a gentle, enduring friendship began to grow. At the New Horizons Foundation, I was not just a volunteer. I wrote a guide called 5 Steps to Escape Psychological and Financial Abuse to help other elders. Lock your accounts, change your passwords, cancel any suspicious bank authorizations, collect proof of signatures, voices, and documents. Seek free legal aid. Always rely on community, never fight alone. Within 2 years, we had helped dozens of seniors protect their assets and reclaim safe homes. In our gatherings, I often reminded them, boundaries are the fences of the heart. No one has the right to break them, not even those who share your blood. Sometimes, Attorney Hayes passed along letters from Melissa. One read, "I turned you into a source of profit instead of a human being. I don't expect forgiveness. I only hope you are at peace." I replied briefly, "Melissa, I forgive, but I do not forget, and I will not reopen the door that has been closed." I let go of the burden, but kept my boundaries intact. One crisp autumn morning, Attorney Hayes called me. "Mrs. Carter, the City Hall invites you to share your story, to help protect other seniors." I agreed immediately, asking only for the date because this was what I had always wanted to do with all my heart. That evening, I sat before my easel again, painting the hues of forested mountains. My phone rang. Linda's cheerful voice, "Evelyn, let's go out for dinner. Let's celebrate life." I glanced into the mirror. The woman staring back at me was far different from the Evelyn of just a couple of years ago. Her eyes brighter, her posture straighter, her smile unburdened. That night, I raised a glass with my chosen family under golden lights. Music floated, laughter rippled, and in my heart, I thought, the greatest legacy is not money or land. It is the courage to live true to oneself, and most of all, it is never too late to be free. My story has come to an end, but its message still echoes. If this story touched you, please share it because who knows, it might save another mother, another elder, from the silent tragedy of betrayal. I want to hear from you. If you were in this situation, would you choose forgiveness first or justice first? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your answer might give strength to someone who is lost right now. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Here, we tell stories where truth conquers lies, where kindness is never buried. On your screen, you'll see 2 more stories that I truly want you to watch. And be ready, because soon I will reveal another shocking case file, the mystery known as M18. Remember this, some doors close not to imprison us, but to protect us. With all love and respect, Evelyn Carter.